What if I told you that while TikTok may be the shiny, controversial thing everyone's always discussing, there's a dependable place to promote your music that is far less annoying and less problematic? I'm of course talking about your old friend, Instagram. What? An app who you probably had ups and downs with, hell, maybe even some cancelable times. But really, your old friend Instagram is still where so many potential fans go to investigate the artist they hear about. It's where they go to stay in touch and deepen a relationship, and oftentimes, Reels are where they first discover their new song, and the DMs, well, that's where the magic happens. So if you're trying to blow up your fan base this year, follow along as we will get your Instagram strategy right so you can stop dropping the ball as I walk you through how to do Instagram exactly the way you should, and probably better than your favorite artists, since so many of you are not getting your music spread the way it should from missing tiny details you can easily fix to start making your dreams happen. So like my YouTube strategy, I have a 4-pillar framework for growing your Instagram and converting the people who come there into your fans. These pillars are: inform. We're going to make it so when someone hits your profile, they can easily understand what you're about and make a good impression and get them to click that follow button so they can grow their relationship with you. Drip. This is how we reveal details of you over time to get more and more intrigue and buy-in from fans, and we do this with stories going live and grid posts or carousels. Reel. Well, this is where we discuss Reels and all their bells and whistles. And then our last pillar is chat. Because let's be honest, commenting and DMing on Instagram is a big part of the game. I'm gonna go over some top-line ideas for you on how to communicate on Instagram effectively. So let's talk about our first pillar, which is inform. And this seems easy, but so many of you mess up small details that really set you back. So one of the things we see repeatedly when we look at listener habits is when the majority of music listeners have decided that they like an artist and want to stop making them just another name on a playlist and want to make sure they don't miss anything, they start that relationship first with an Instagram follow. But before they do that, they first do a vibe check on that Instagram profile. Come on, we've all done this. We first check to make sure this is even the right artist profile, since we've all made that mistake of going to the wrong artist profile, then 2 weeks later wondering why we followed this artist who's hawking something called Tapecoin and writing songs about going to the moon, and you thought you were following some new sad girl fave like Weeby Midgers or something. But really, some of you forget to look at your own profile through the eyes of a stranger and write as your bio, "You know what it is," when the reason this person is here is because they don't know what it is and want to find out. Okay, so how do you inform this new potential fan? Well, let's start with your profile pic. So what makes a good profile pic? Well, first off, this is one of the smallest pics you will ever display. So one of the first things we have to make sure is that the picture has enough pop and shape that someone can kind of make it out. If it has a vibe that gives cultural signifiers of your position or that you belong in the community that these people are going to be in that are going to be your potential fans, well, it's going to go a lot better. And this can be done through color palette, dress, or graphic design. Just make sure it's legible. Now, here's some of that insider publicity wisdom that I hear in the back rooms that's existed forever but rarely gets discussed. There's a theory that this is the one thing you don't ever really want to change or alter. And if you do change it, you want to change it as little as possible. Since when this little picture comes up on the timeline next to your name, it gives a cue to the viewer who they are watching content from. And when you change it, well, they get confused and often think it's a stranger and they're being served some ad or someone else's content they don't care about, and they scroll faster. So the key is to change it only once every era at most, since what we see repeatedly is when people first change it, it can often drive down their watch time and their engagement. But really, so many times the colors of that icon start to tell you who it is, and when it's unfamiliar, you get scrolled past and drive down your engagement. Next, we have your bio, which no matter how much I stress this, y'all still do things like,
"Try Dick Energy, out now!"
Because you see some famous artists with millions of followers do this and think you're playing the same game as artists who already have millions of fans. Instead, we want to write something that sums you up or gets people curious to go deeper. Since think about what our goal here is, which is to get this new potential fan to go deeper. So things like what you are seeing on the screen now really help because they either give a vibe or create curiosity to go deeper. Writing, "I'm the one," begs the question, the one artist trying to get my attention? Right. Next, we have the links that you can put in. And I obviously think you should put a link in bio here. And I'm not gonna go super deep on that since I will do that in a separate video a few months from now, but let's give you a mindset. Your link in bio should be a traffic directory. It should give anyone who wants to get to know you better a quick way to get to know you however they may like. And if that's YouTube, the link should be at the top. If it's Twitter, well, weird flex, but okay, give it to them. Next, in your list of links, only have the ones that are important. Don't go crazy. Once you hit 8 links down, we can see that link in bios who get 100,000 views in a month get less than a dozen clicks at around 8 links down and below. And these artists have fans who are obsessed with them, so truly don't bore them and stick to the highlights in the order that will give them a good impression of you. And since Instagram allows you to put multiple links here, a lot of you will do that, but what I personally think you should do is if your link in bio is nice and clean, get people to go there, especially if you're using one like Beacons that can capture emails, since we'd really rather have an email than nearly anything else, and the chance we get that really helps. I get them every day on my Beacons, and it helps me get emails I turn into people who pay for things, since let's be real, these YouTube checks don't be hitting enough to pay for my stupid lifestyle. And if you want to sign up for Beacons, it is free, but you should use the link in my description to get their current best offer if you want to use extra features. But back to you. Next, we have those buttons for your stories. But shockingly, these are a common behavior that fans click on and investigate, which always shocks me since I don't ever click on these things. Anyway, the first one you should have is pretty obvious, which is music, where you put up a story and link to a stream of it on YouTube or Spotify and link it so if someone likes what they hear, they can go get more, since that's what we'd really like. Don't overthink this, simply link either Spotify or YouTube, or if you're really into Bandcamp or SoundCloud, alternate the links between those and put up links to all your songs that would make a good first impression if someone's friend told them to listen to you. After that, make buttons for things that will make a good impression for a new listener. If you have a sick new live show, well, that's the next button that you should have. If you make exceptional videos, maybe that should be second. If your merch is sick fits, well, make that a priority. But basically, the further we go to the right, the less likely it'll be for someone to click on one of these buttons. And if you do sick tutorials or playthroughs, get one for that. But let's remember, the more you make of these and they go to the right, the less likely they're gonna get clicked. But think high level categories, not just each single you have, but instead music, live, merch, tour, things like that. And make sure you have links to the stories you highlight so you can get fans to go deeper and actually go to the links and get them off this site. Next, we get to your grid, and the first tool you have at your disposal is the ability to pin 3 posts. Now, in my video where I recently talked about the most viral artists of 2024, which is of course in the description, I discussed that a lot of them make videos that get people up to speed on your story, so they have some buy-in and context about you. If that is something you've made or plan on making, I'd suggest pinning it, but otherwise you could pin some of your best videos that give a good introductory vibe so that you make a good impression. Now, a lot of you pin the videos that got the most views, but on Instagram Grid, it doesn't show the views, so that flexes, well, a lot like a tree in the forest that falls. No one sees it. And sure, I can hear the argument that if someone clicks on it, they will see the engagement, but really, just put your best foot forward. As for whether you should hide reels or do a grid collage across a lot of different posts, listen, this is your vibe. I can't do everything for you, but I will say Instagram just changed the shape of previews for those posts and messed up a lot of y'all. So I tend to just want to create a vibe and use this as something where you're expressing yourself and showing people the vibe of what you do, and think of it in that way, and don't go too hard on it. Just get it done. But let's go deeper on the vibe on your grid, despite what I just said. I noticed there tends to be 2 directions you all go with this, which is an aesthetic where you spend time knowing and perfecting, and the rest of you just post whatever the hell you want. The reality is, the younger your audience, the more I'd recommend you pick a color aesthetic and keep it at a similar vibe and color set, as we see kids like that. But I also want to note color patterns aren't the only way to do this. One of the things I really see culturally different is how the grid is handled. For example, with pop stars, you need to be putting up constant carousels. Honestly, that's some of the game. Whereas if you're just a chill dude making lo-fi beats, or a they-them making your sickest riffs online, you don't need to go crazy with carousels, and instead just concentrate on other areas like stories and reels, and we'll get into that in a few. As for archiving posts and keeping this all neat, do it as you see fit. But if I'm being real, I find archiving too often to be very silly. One of the behaviors we see in studies is that fans will often scroll through your whole profile when they get obsessed with you, sometimes even multiple times. And giving these fans your lore and story to buy into and more conversation points to go deeper with you is an asset. And depriving fans of that, I think, is a big loss, especially when it's compared to just keeping up an aesthetic. I mean, I sat on a train recently and watched a girl go through Chappell Roan's profile 3 times through the whole train ride. So this behavior really does happen, and anyone who gets obsessed with fans sees it happen, and at first you're like, what? And then you start to just see this as normal when you have mega fans. But truly, if your friend Johnny, who talks out of his ass all the time, tells you Instagram demotes you for archiving, I will tell you straight up, I've seen artists of every size do what they feel is right to curate the grid, and Instagram truly does not care. But trying to make it a vibe, a color aesthetic, or something that feels, well, striking and worth following will get a lot more followers than some random weird saturated photos next to a random live shot and, well, a mess. And that's what 99% of you have here. Our next pillar is to drip. Now, one of the more interesting things that has happened over time is Instagram used to be pretty cagey about what to do that works. But ever since TikTok ate their lunch, their CEO has been dripping out how to succeed on Instagram. Since Adam's got to try to get their market cap up so he can get one of those 6 CEO bunkers that all of them are building so that they don't die in the apocalypse, so he's got to get his bread up. Anyway, one of the things Instagram seems to be on and on about now is that they want more quality in stories. Once upon a time, they treated those who treated stories like a faucet that was always on and flowing really well, but now they seem to prefer a drip that is high quality. And what I mean by that is what everyone seems to see these days. One engaging story seems to get way more engagement than 7 stories of mid BS of you saying,
In-N-Out Burger is off the chain again.
or a picture of the squad from 7 different angles. Just one tight pic that's edited well will go way further, and frankly, that's the rare good news around these parts. But Instagram Stories is one of the only places where links can get posted, and they definitely punish them though with reach. But I have found a way around this, which is to instead post a story with a question that will inspire a lot of people DMing you an answer. So not a poll, but instead engagement where they send you answers to your DMs. This could be, what should I listen to? Or what's the best pizza in Brooklyn? Which the answer is the OG DeFara or Joe's. No other answers allowed. Anyway, right after that, put up the story with your big announcement in the next post and it will get way more engagement, as the question post will get your stories moved up in the algo and the one with the link right after will also get seen. Now, you can still have those days where you do those ask me questions once or twice a month where you fill up everyone's storyline with tons and tons of posts and you'll still get decent engagement. And you could also use all the bells and whistles on here too. Put locations on things. If you really want to be annoying, use countdowns. But really, we all know when Instagram launches these new features like this new WhatsApp one they're pushing, if you use them, they'll juice your posts. But of course, I always get asked, should you be adding your song to these? And the answer is yes, put it in your story, reels, and your carousels every time. This is how you get your music heard. And I should say, some of you are like,
Jesse, I can't get those fancy add music to library buttons unless my music is in the Instagram music library. How do I get it there?
the fact is, that's a moving target, and it's going to go out of date before this video is even edited. So I'm going to suggest doing your Googles. Simply type that into Google. I just did it, and there's great answers, and it'll probably be current for as long as you do that. You just write the month and the year, and it'll usually bring you new content that will show you how to do that. But the real thought process behind a good story is, what do I have to announce, and what can I put up that will either get shares or engagement in the DMs? And that will usually get you to the right thought. If you could reinforce your positioning and promote your music while doing that, well, you have a winner idea. Now, let's remember, you always have that close friends button, which you can hack reach with. I really do suggest adding your most engaged fans there to make them feel special so your stories get seen by the people who are most enthused in your fan base. Is it annoying adding them? Hell yes. Does it help? Well, hell yes. Next, let's talk about grid posts. Since this is Instagram's oldest format, I would like to think that this is obvious since we've all been doing this for a decade and a half. Well, at least some of us who are old enough to have done that. Anyway, here's the quick TLDR on how to do grid posts and carousels right. The most engaging images go first. If you're announcing something that goes in the caption and subtly in one of the later slides, it is never worth it to post a single image, since if you just take a good image or two and then do a photo dump of some fun stuff, that will always perform better, even if the later photos are pretty mid. Collab posts, though, are really the secret sauce here. Literally, the thing we constantly see is that collab posts with one or more creators will go further than the best posts. Always add your music to these carousel posts too, since so many people are scrolling with the sound on, and you need to use this to help get your hook heard and in their head. Now, the last thing I will say is about captions, and this is the writing that happens below the post in a grid. These are still an amazing place to get some serious storytelling done, and what I mean is bonding with fans. I have tons of videos on how to do storytelling well, so there's no way I'm going to make this long video even longer with that. So if you don't know about the power of storytelling in Instagram captions, hit the description and go in, because it's important. But before we get out of the drip pillar, we have to, of course, talk about going live. One of the best ways to juice your reach, especially when you have an announcement, is to go live. I suggest posting stories in a single grid post announcing when you're gonna go live. If you're gonna have guests on the live, make sure to collaborate on the posts and tag them in your story and tell people the time a few days to a week in advance so you can get as many people there as possible. Anyway, go live for an hour, answer questions, and most of all, make sure you have prepared some ideas of what to talk about. I don't know, look at Google News, the internet, find some things that you can discuss that'll be fun to your audience. And most of all, engage with the people's questions there. Our third pillar is Reel, which I'm gonna shock you, is about Reels. So listen, Reels are largely the same as TikTok. I've made so many videos on how to make good TikToks and Reels, so I am not gonna focus on that here, but instead I'm gonna focus on what I see you all mess up a lot outside of the production and actual videos. If you wanna go deeper, I have so many videos on this that are linked in the description. So let's get into what you all mess up with Reels. First off, Instagram seems to be getting closer and closer to being smart enough to not care what your hashtags are. I still suggest that if you're in algorithmic jail to watch my video on how you find your first fans, which is linked below, and follow the instructions on how to find the right hashtags and keywords to put in your video. But for descriptions of your video, one of the things you gotta stop doing is pretending this is 2013 and writing,
"Out now, my new song. My autism test results are hidden in this piñata."
stream it on Apple Music. Listen, Chief, we've all been doing this for years. If someone likes the song, they will go find it or ask in the comments, which drives up your engagement. So let's do this instead. 1, can you make an interesting or funny or provocative comment on the video that shows personality? Well, that's great. No more of this 2013 Instagram stuff of promoting your show and McDrunkies on the 25th. When you're talking to an international audience, often of strangers, and you're trying to go viral, get them engaged. And this is one of the main things I teach in my member fee every single week, which, by the way, for $5 a month, you get over 6 hours of new videos every month, as well as my back catalog of almost 80 videos now, where I explain the latest social media trends, answer your questions, as well as cheat codes for how you blow up in your genre faster than other artists, and dissect how the biggest artists in the world are blowing up from 0 fans to now making their dreams come true, as well as the latest music promotion methods. And once a month, I listen to any songs my members submit of their music that they want me to listen to. So you should really tap in there, and there's a link to join in the description. Now, there's much discussion on whether you should go into Instagram and actually use their tool to type on the top of your video the subject. And I haven't seen definitive evidence that you can't do this in CapCut or DaVinci and not have the video punished. But choose your own adventure here. I don't have data. I would just do whatever's best. I've seen videos go viral using both methods. Next, Instagram has bells and widgets like putting polls and prompts in. Listen, they're always pushing features TikTok doesn't have, so if you can think of something here, I do it. While this feature is still hot, but if not, skip it. It's not necessary. Obviously, tag other accounts involved in the video anytime there is one, since this will potentially put it in their algorithm. But don't get sneaky here and tag The Weeknd. Not because he seems like an unfriendly and weird dude, because it does nothing for you. Do legit tags only. Now, if you're trying to tag your next show at McAlcoholics or the local Zaza Hut, it's great to use local hashtags and locations, which will help you get seen locally and will make it more relevant in that local market. Something a lot of people miss too is that in Reels, you can choose to only show them to your close friends and make your fans feel special, or make content for them and try to draw up a conversation as friends brag to other friends who like you about seeing that because they're in your close friends. Next, we get to that trials reel feature, and I'm not going to get too into that yet since the jury is still out on them and it seems like they're developing the product more. So next, let's go over some other quick settings. You can select for your reels to automatically go to Facebook and Threads. If you don't want to engage in the cesspool of Facebook, this is a great hack since one of the things we saw in my recent survey on music listening is that a lot of people do watch these things over on Facebook. As for Threads, I would only do this on your most important reels since it's not really what people are on text apps for. Next, you could also enable features like adding a reminder if you are advertising a song release or a live show. You could also schedule reels if you want to put them up later, though I really think the posting time on Instagram is a bit overblown, but if you want to get into that, I see noon and 7 p.m. EST on the East Coast being the general agreed upon times for across America no matter where you live, and America's your target. The next box you could check, especially if you're usually on Wi-Fi or on the artist MIA's least favorite thing, 5G, is to upload a at the highest quality since we want your videos to look good. You could also hide like and share counts on your reels if that helps your mental health, but I find that to be between you and your own mental health. I would enable closed captions and the translate feature since many people use these translations and it ups your engagement. If you want to stay updated on things like this, I highly suggest you subscribe to my newsletter, Music Marketing Trends. There's two other features that I feel like are much more neglected on Instagram compared to TikTok, and that's the remix feature, which is the same as TikTok's duet feature, and then you have sequence, which lets you take different videos and put them in a new continual order. And while both of these are great for Instagram understanding where you belong in a community, it can be great to use so you can get the algorithm to recommend you to the best possible fans. I'll be honest, no one knows how to use that sequence thing, so don't feel bad if you don't and don't use it. Our final pillar is chat, and while some of you love this and some of you really hate it. Now I will say, the more savvy among you love this thing called ManyChat, and it's one of those hot chat bots everyone's talking about. And as of this video dropping, ManyChat seems to still be working. Though recently Instagram did seem to get aggressive, like they were gonna punish its use, but I still seem to see it being used well, where someone comments something if they want the song link to them in a DM, and ManyChat then sends them that song link in a DM. I feel like this is another thing where you're gonna have to stay tuned on how it goes if you're going hard on Instagram. And there's countless videos on how to use ManyChat well, and feel free to rinse those if you wanna go deep since I got other things to cover here. And truly, some musicians would rather do this than write a song, and some, the total opposite, would hope to never ever do this again. But let's get into this. There's no doubt that being a presence in your community's comments, meaning commenting on other musicians and the influencers around them's comment section, gets others curious about you, and when they see your artist name there, it's a great way to get name familiarity and build community and friendships with other artists, as well as getting people generally curious enough to check out your profile. But as well, participating in your own comments is huge. I hate to say this, but I see it working, which is once a day scrolling through and responding to as many comments as possible, even with fast comments, works to boost engagement. Instagram loves you being an active participant and spending time, and clearly rewards it. I'm way too busy to do this most of the time, so I don't participate, and I do just fine. Whereas some of my friends, like someone whose name rhymes with Rat Macon, will tell me he needs to go home instead of hanging out for another drink to go answer the comments, which, come on. You have the opportunity to have another drink with me? Now, this will not be your make or break by any means, but if you want to juice the comments or really up a current post or era, it can really give some push, especially if you want to say, play less Elden Ring and do something more effective with your time, rather than beating whatever warlock you're all constantly fighting there. Well, replying to these comments can do that. But now we come to the place where modern romance really occurs these days. And I'm of course talking about Instagram DMs. What, where'd you think I met? The Eiffel Tower or a date at Mission Chinese NYC? Listen, artists get DMs, and everyone has their own personal boundaries on how to handle that and what they are comfortable with. But there's no doubt that having a business account and being able to sort people into primary and general is super helpful for notifications, and leaving some people in request jail is needed, especially since most of the socially inept people will write you things like,
Bro, why the fuck do you have to go to F sharp before the chorus? It should have been an E note, dude.
guess you gotta go record the whole song since Johnny Shebang thinks you did it wrong. Anyway, let me give you some quick guides here. Once you start DMing with a fan, it often becomes a big deal, and the fan will crave it and judge their relationship by it. So you have to be careful who you open the doors to. Also, great friendships are formed here, especially with your peers and other professionals. I have an assistant largely answer my DMs because I get messages from some of my favorite artists to work with them at times and don't want to miss them, but I also can't write back to every message that's telling me to make them famous all day. And if I did do that, you all would be even more pissed at me at how infrequently I drop videos like this. The reality is though, you can use the DMs for sincere thanks and say I rarely get to read these, but it made me so happy to see what you did. Or you can even leave them voice messages too if you want to make them feel extra special. Of course, when you first start out, having relationships with day oneers is important. I think it's important to answer a lot when you are below a few thousand followers, and often those early fans end up being people you stay close with, since something about that bond really works for longevity. Anyway, you should check your requests regularly since a lot of great stuff often is waiting in there. I know a lot of people have lost great opportunities from not checking those requests, since for some reason people find this an acceptable place to do business. So here's the thing, while you just learned all of this, if you really want to grow your fan base, you need to know how to promote your music on YouTube, and you're lucky because the video on the screen right now now is my guide to that, which will teach you everything you need to know just like this one. So if you want to get learned, keep watching, and thanks for watching this.